I am going to be making a really easy pasta carbonara, and my guess is that you're actually going to have a lot of the ingredients, if not every single one of the ingredients that you need to make this already in your pantry. So it's a fantastic meal to make if you're stuck at home, if you don't want to go, if you don't want to leave the house, whatever, you probably have what you need to make it, and let's get started. Okay, so usually carbonara uses like spaghetti noodles, but let's be real, it's good to use what you've got on hand. The texture is 100% going to be different, but the flavor isn't going to be any different at all. So use what pasta you have on hand. I've got bow ties, is that the word? And then penne as well. I'll probably just use the bow ties in this. Also, you need some prosciutto, which I've got here left over from last week. If you don't have prosciutto, you could use ham, you could use pork. Gosh, you could use really anything that you have. You just want something with some salt and then crunch, and I guess actually bacon would be a great option as well. Also frozen peas. I just have some left over in my freezer. They've been in there for a while, but they still work out great and look nice too. And then you'll need olive oil, obviously an egg because this is carbonara, lemon juice, and salt. And really that's it. Like how much easier can that get? So a couple of tips before we get started. Definitely need to save some of the pasta water. That's what makes it really thick and creamy. And then also I'm going to be adding in the peas to the cooking pasta, and I'll show you how to do that. So before I get started on anything else, I want to get the pasta started. This is going to take the longest to cook, so I want to get the pasta started. I'm going to fill up my pan and then add some salt in the pasta, and we'll get started. All right, so I'm going to get my pasta started. I'm going to turn it on high, get the water boiling, and add some salt to it. Salt adds a lot of flavor to your pasta, so salt your pasta early, and then you don't necessarily need, you might not need to add any salt later. So I'm going to get this started. Okay, so while the pasta is cooking, I'm going to start my sauce. This is so easy. All you're going to do is crack an egg into a small bowl. Squeeze some fresh lemon. Make sure to get rid of all of the seeds. Squeeze some fresh lemon in there. And then olive oil and some salt. You do not want the seeds in there. Okay, now I'm going to pour some olive oil in. You can find this recipe on Nourish Nutrition blog with all of the amounts that you use, but honestly, I don't follow directions well, even my own. So, and then salt, and then you're just gonna mix it together. So this is almost the whole sauce. Well, this is one part of the sauce, excuse me. So we're gonna get this all mixed together, and then 2 other ingredients will go into this sauce as it's ready to be used. You're going to add Parmesan cheese to it, as well as pasta water, which I'll talk about when the pasta is ready. So I just like to get the egg and the olive oil and all that stuff incorporated before I add the Parmesan cheese, which I totally forgot to get out. So I'm going to grab that. Okay, so I actually have some leftover Parmesan cheese from a salad bag that I bought. And you know, actually, now that I think about it, this Parmesan, I mean, we've all had this pre-grated Parmesan, right? It's fine, but I'm actually going to grate my own Parmesan cheese. You know, the texture is really nice, and I think actually, especially for this dish, you want it to grate and use like a microplane like this, because you're gonna get really nice thin shavings of cheese. And what that means is that it's going to melt a lot easier, and it's going to be super silky. Not to say that this Parmesan cheese won't melt, this Parmesan cheese won't melt, but actually in this dish it really might not. The reason for that is when you make pasta carbonara, you add this egg mixture to pasta that is not on the heat element anymore. The reason for that is you don't want to curdle the egg. You don't want to get scrambled eggs in your carbonara. You want it to be really, really silky and smooth. And this actually grated by you Parmesan cheese is gonna melt a heck of a lot easier and nicer than pre-grated. So if you do have this on hand, I highly recommend it. If not, honestly, it might be a good idea to drain the water, and I'll show you how to do that, and then to add the Parmesan cheese and cook it over the heat, and then add the egg mixture so the cheese can get all melted. I guess unless you do really like actual chunks of cheese, that's fine. So like I said, I don't measure things, whatever, it's real life. And so I'm just kind of doing this by sight. I've made it before a couple times, but you know, is there harm in having a little bit too much parm? I don't think so. I think it makes it real good. All right, so it's been boiling for a couple of minutes. I'm gonna try, see if I can grab one of these. It's like the hardest part right here to test it. Okay, so I just took a bite and it's good. It's like a little bit crunchy, which means that it's perfect. I'm actually going to be draining a little bit of the water, and I'll pour it into a cup. So I'm gonna drain some of the water before I put the peas in, just so I don't lose as many of the nutrients in the water. If you don't want to do that, don't drain it ahead of time. That's totally fine. And like I said before, you want to keep some of the pasta water to then put back in the sauce. So that's why I'm pouring it into a bowl. And now you can see like the water is barely covering the pasta, and that's perfect. Okay, so now it's back on the stove. It's gonna start boiling in a second. I am going to grab my peas. Now's the time to add the peas to this. The reason why I just add peas or whatever vegetables I'm cooking with directly to the pasta is it's one less pan to clean, and it's just so easy. So add, I don't know how much is in the recipe, like a half a cup or something. So I'm just gonna add some and let it cook. So we'll just wait for these to get kind of to a vibrant green. Okay, and so I heated up another pan. This is if you want to. Again, it's an extra step, but I kind of like the crispiness that it takes. So if you want to heat up the prosciutto that you have, getting back to it for the fifth time, then you can do that. This will make them nice and crispy, add some texture to it, to your dish. You can eat it, you can just add it uncooked, that's totally fine. I kind of like them a little bit crispy. It's like bacon, but fancier. So it's like on medium heat. And then moving to, let's see, my pasta. I turned down the heat, and I think I turned it down too much. So I'm turning it back up, and I think this is about done. So I'm gonna turn this off, and I'm gonna drain the pasta. This is just normal. I usually use my lid because, again, I don't want to clean one other thing. You get a colander if you feel more comfortable with that. That's totally fine. And turn the heat off. That's really important. Okay, so this pasta is not being heated right now. So I'm gonna add the pasta water. It's gonna be hot because I poured the hot water into it. You're gonna add about a half a cup, I want to say. Pour that in, pour some of it in. And the reason why we're using this pasta water is like the best trick ever. Okay, so you're cooking a starchy pasta, right? And then it's cooking in water, so some of the starch is going to go into the water. And then when you drain it, it's not as starchy. So when you add the pasta water back, the pasta water that has the starch in it, it's going to create this like really silky, smooth, creamy sauce. And literally all you put in was the pasta water, and it's awesome. So highly recommend doing that. It takes remembering at the right time, but it's so easy and so good. Okay, whoops. And then the prosciutto is done. It's crispy, and you can chop it up. But I'm feeling like that's one step too far right now. So I'm gonna add this egg mixture in it. Again, you want the heat off, so it's not gonna curdle the eggs. And this is nice and thick, so that's gonna combine with the pasta water and kind of thin it out. So it's better to start with less pasta water than too much, because you can always add more, and that's okay. So now I'm just going to stir it to combine. So again, you're totally able to turn up the heat just a little bit, like low to 3 maybe, and that would probably depend on your stove. I've got this old one that's probably heats up less than others, so be aware of that. But it's really thickening up, and it's almost ready. I turned the heat off because it's almost to the thickness that I want. I don't want it to get too thick or to curdle, so I turned the heat off, and I'm just gonna stir it a little bit, and then I'll be ready to dump it in a bowl and get it in my belly. Okay, so that's seriously it. It probably took 15 minutes plus a couple because I put too much what's that, pasta water in here. But you can see this is super easy. I am going to add some freshly ground black pepper because I love that on almost everything. Maybe a little bit of Parmesan cheese if I feel like it needs a little bit more of that. And it's really hot, so I'm not going to take a bite. Well, I am. It's worth it. Look at this. It's super creamy and gooey and cheesy. It's good. It's really good, and it just takes a couple minutes, and even can be made with pantry items. So I just want this video to show you how easy cooking can be, how imperfect cooking can be, how you can redeem yourself in a lot of different points in your recipe, and it's still gonna turn out good.